hit a long way. Out on the run is Liriano. He makes the catch. An amazing catch. Sails the ball back to first base and then...
Hi, I'm Prem Panicker, and this is Sport and Pastime. The headline news today is that India has just won the Champions Trophy, defeating New Zealand in the final with 4 wickets and an over to spare. This is the second ICC trophy that India has won in the last 2 years, following on from the T20 win in 2024, clearly establishing India as one of the great ODI sides of all time.
Hi, and this is a very excited Faisal Shariff. After all the debacle in Australia and the defeats at home, it seemed that it was going to be a really, really tough ask for India to come back and play well in the Champions Trophy. But what a performance! Without a defeat and with such handsome margins, the way India has won this tournament, you have to start thinking and comparing this with the other great ODI sides that India has had. Prem?
Yeah, absolutely. And this side stands comparison. I think it's a fully well-rounded side, and more to the point, it's got an awesome bench strength. So it means that you're not just playing your best 11 players. You've got players who can step into the breach. They weren't needed in this particular tournament, but you've got players both on the bench and outside the bench. I mean, for instance, I remember looking at a statistic which said that one of the top scorers for India in white ball cricket in recent times has been Sanju Samson. We don't even have him in the playing 11. So we've got we've got a tremendous depth of talent, and I think that's probably the most heartening feature of the present Indian side.
Absolutely, Prem. And in fact, there was so much talk about the advantage that India is going to have, that they're only playing in Dubai, and the English media, South African David Miller was saying that. I think that's all been put to rest now, because in the end, how much ever you travel or you don't, in the end you have to show results and you have to win. And India has done that, as we can see. It's been amazing, and it's been an all-round effort. If you look at the scorecard there, you know the spinners did their job. Shami and Hardik did their little role at the start of the innings. Though we went in with four spinners, but I think it's just been fantastic. I mean, you can do nothing but just salute this great Indian side.
True, and to the question of advantage, I think the first point that needs to be made, and I've actually written a piece for Playbook talking about the same problem that India has an advantage. I think two things need to be mentioned. One is the players didn't ask for it. So talking about it at this particular point in time is unfair to the players. Uh, did India have an advantage? Yeah, certainly. I mean, Mohammad Shami, in fact, said, yeah, it's an advantage to just be staying put in one place, and we know the conditions, we know what we need to do. That said, and the advantage also stems from, if you think of, if India had played in both Dubai and Pakistan, for instance, or had only played in Pakistan, the team composition would have been different. I doubt you could have played two wrist spinners. I doubt you could have played two left arm spinners in the same side. I doubt you could have played four spinners and just one regular seam bowler, and Hardik, who's basically more of a batting all rounder, bowling seam up. All of that said, just having the advantage is not enough. You have to be able to capitalize on it. You have to be able to use it. And India did that very well. If teams have a problem with that, the boards should have protested before the tournament. I think coming to the fag end of the tournament, realizing that India is doing well, and then saying, oh, India had an advantage, is a bit, spilt milk here.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Because if you see, I mean, during the 2023 World Cup, India traveled all across India. I mean, they were zooming up in the north, coming down to the south, playing their games all across. But India's never really cribbed about it. Even when there are tournaments in England, England get the better part of the itinerary, and India is the one who's doing all the traveling. But I've never heard a Rohit Sharma, Virat Kohli, when he was captain, ever crib about it. I mean, you know, I think that's one of the parts, and I think it's one of the things that everyone has to deal with, the travel. I don't think that's really a factor, and I think finally it's been put to rest, which is a really, really good thing.
Yeah, and I think it was Santna, one of the New Zealanders, who made the point that having played India in Dubai in the league phase, they knew what to expect and they were preparing for it. So, as far as the final is concerned, let's just negate the advantage. Yeah, sure, New Zealand had to travel up and down a little bit, but all of that is water under the bridge. And like I said, I mean, if you want to protest about playing conditions, the time to do it is before you start playing, not in the middle of a tournament. So
Right, right. And Chief, I
now
must make
coming to
sure you
the
noticed one other thing on that scorecard. The other thing on the scorecard, you had hoped, if not predicted, that if Rohit Sharma can stay beyond those quick fire 20 or 30s, then this is going to be a really, really interesting game, and India will really have a huge advantage. And you know, it's exactly what's happened. And Prem, I must remind you of another great prediction or hope that you had made many years ago, almost 24 years ago, when Rahul Dravid and Lakshman were batting. And you'd said, I remember your lines clearly. You'd said that if I could walk on water, and I could say that if these two bat out the entire fourth day, then this is going to be one of the greatest test matches ever. And yeah, I'm just going back to that, and I was just smiling. That was a great prediction too.
Yeah, Calcutta 2001, right? Not 2001.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, 2001, yeah.
Yeah, but no, I mean, for me, it was, and funnily enough, Rohit actually mentioned that in post match comments. I think he said this is not exactly what he wants to do, but he believes that this is what the team requires, and that he has got the buy in from both Rahul Dravid, who was the coach before, and now Gautam Gambhir, and that he's also talked to Kohli and the other seniors about what he is trying to do and that he believes he has to go hard. And he also made the point that given the depth in batting, given an Ajay Jadeja coming where he is, he has the confidence of going hard at the top because he knows that there is depth in batting and that even if he falls early, if he gives them a if he kickstarts the innings, goes from 0 to 100 in 30 seconds, the rest of the batsmen will come in and do what needs to be done. All of that said, I still believe that Rohit batting a bit deeper than he is, batting past the power play, puts India in a phenomenal position because he's got the skills to take on pretty much any kind of bowling there is. It's not just pace, he
That's
plays
true.
spin equally beautifully. And today he put on display, I think, the entire range of skills. I think, funnily enough, this was a very tight match. It was a great final. Some of the finals that we've had have been one-sided, but this has been a great final. But it's also been a very scrappy final. If you look at India, for instance, we dropped 4 catches, missed a run out when Kuldeep was watching the ball instead of getting behind the stumps. New Zealand dropped 2 catches.
New Zealand drop catches.
Uh, yeah, and funnily enough, New Zealand in the competition leading up to the final has only dropped 3 catches. In the final, they've dropped two. There was a point when Glenn Phillips misfielded off his own bowling. All of these you don't see. So clearly, the tension of the final was very much there. But all that said, it was a nail biting game. I mean, you thought that one particular team had the upper hand, and then everything changed, and then everything changed again. It made for great watching.
Yeah, it was really, really interesting. And in fact, it goes back to the whole point of what did India do correctly that they did so well, throughout the tournament. What have they been doing well? And my mind goes back to that whole conversation that we had earlier about chasing the ones and making sure that the dots are always going to be in control if you keep taking the singles.
Yeah, I'm still not sure that the dots are in control. You're pretty much half the innings is going in dots. But if you look, if you're talking of what India did well, and you're talking throughout the tournament, I think we did two things well. Our spinners bowl better than pretty much any of the opposition lineups, and we also scored better against spin than any of the other teams. So on tracks where spin was going to always play an inordinate role, we batted better against spin and we bowled spin better. So, yeah, I mean, if you look at that statistic, it's such a telling
Yeah.
stat. You've got on your average, you're about 8. runs per wicket more than the next best team, which is New Zealand. That's
Correct.
phenomenal. I think the only place where we lagged a little bit was runs per over against spin, but even that was not a major drop. So all told, I think that's what they did. They picked the right team for the conditions, and they used the
Right.
right team. But I mean, if you look at today's game, for instance, I was hoping this would happen, and it actually happened. Kuldeep got the ball in the 11th over. Normally, he gets the ball after 20. By then, the ball has gone soft. The seam has gone a little bit. That it's not prominent anymore, which means that he won't get one, the bounce that a hard ball will give you, and two, the grip that the seam will give you. This time, you gave him a new ball with a pronounced seam, a relatively new ball with a pronounced seam, and look what he did. I mean, he was phenomenal in that first spell. He was almost unplayable, and so yeah, I think that. So again, if you look at the graphic, at the 20 over mark, there's nothing in it except for one extra wicket lost. But what is worth keeping in mind is when New Zealand loses an extra wicket, and that two wickets of the caliber of Rachin Ravindra and Kane Williamson, they don't have that quality of batting to follow. Yeah, sure, Tom Latham can bat, and so can Daryl Mitchell, and Glenn Phillips can hit the ball. John Bracewell, Mike Mitchell Bracewell can hit the ball. All of that, but they are not of the same caliber as, say, Shreyas Iyer coming in, followed by Akshar Patel, followed by
KL
KL Rahul,
Rahul.
followed by
Yeah.
Hardik Pandya, followed by Ravindra Jadeja. That's a different lineup altogether. So that extra wicket mattered, and because the New Zealand batting lineup is not as strong or as reliable. I mean, two of the players are actually hitters, not necessarily batsmen who can play long innings. What that meant was
Correct.
that, and again, Tom Latham had a bad day out. I think he scored about 14 runs in 30 deliveries or some such. So what that
Yeah.
meant was
And
that
in fact,
players like
yeah.
Phillips, yeah, sorry, players like Glenn Phillips and who else was it? Daryl Mitchell actually had to spend a lot of time consolidating. So if you look at that 30 to
Yeah,
40
there
over
wasn't a
mark when you're
boundary from the
slowly,
14th to, yeah, 14th to 27th. I think they didn't get a boundary for almost 80 balls.
yeah,
They didn't have a single boundary.
correct. And singles weren't easy to get either. One of the things that the Indian spinners did brilliantly, I thought, was they just bowled wicket to wicket. Normally, they try different things. They try bowling outside the wicket to the packed offside field sometimes, and all of that. This time, they were relentless in line and length, which meant that even singles were very difficult for New Zealand to get.
And
They used up a lot of.
Varun mentioned that in the interview after the match, he said that we knew that the ball was not turning much. We understood that from the start, and we decided we'll just bowl wicket to wicket, and that's where our best opportunity, would lie in getting
Right.
wickets, and that's exactly what happened.
Correct. Uh, so yeah, I mean, for New Zealand to lose wickets is a different proposition than for India to lose wickets, and we saw that difference. I think also both teams, probably because the pressure of the final, they missed some clear bets. I wasn't very convinced by, say, for instance, Shami and Hardik bowling the last three. They went for some
Yeah,
36 odd runs, and Aksar had overs to spare. I don't think Aksar would have given more runs than Shami or Hardik did in that period when they
yeah,
both
that
went
was a
for
bit surprising
12.
for me too. Yeah,
Yeah, and again, if you look at what Mitchell Santner did, I think around the 35 over mark when India was batting, it looked like India had things well under control. So New Zealand's option at that point was go flat out, try and get wickets. Instead of which they fiddled around a bit with O'Rourke bowling, Jemison bowling, uh, and that actually ended up releasing the pressure. And then Santner came back, took a wicket. Bracewell came back, took a wicket. If that had been done a bit earlier, maybe. And actually, as it turned out, Jemison dropping that catch didn't matter much because Shreyas only added four more runs after that. But
yeah,
these things
immediately
have an
after that.
impact. Yeah. So yeah,
That's
I mean, In terms of sheer quality, I don't think this was the best that the two teams were capable of. But in terms of sheer drama, I think this was a brilliant, brilliant final.
Yeah, in fact, when Rohit was stumped, India, the only Achilles heel that India has had through this tournament has been the middle 20 overs, That has been a
Yeah,
Achilles heel for them. In fact, if you look at pure numbers, they are second worst only to Bangladesh in their scoring rate between that period. But I mean, to be fair
yeah.
to them, it's also that they've chased total. So they've known how to pace themselves because they've then gone big because they knew there's a KL Rahul and a Pandya at the end who can really accelerate. But just the middle overs have been a bit of a headache for India. And I think it looked like today they were going to be exposed by the Kiwis, but I think what KL Rahul, Shreyas, and Akshar Patel did was just phenomenal. In fact, talking of that, I was just pulling out some numbers, and I think Akshar has just been an amazing cog in this whole thing. I mean, we don't give him enough credit, but if you look at from almost last August, they've started sending him at that position where they put him at number 5, and he's got almost 214 runs. He averages about 42, and he's made almost 4 scores of 40 plus in 6 innings. That's like, and it goes completely unnoticed because Shreyas gets 100 and or gets a 50, or KL Rahul, gets important runs, goes for the big scores. But it's really Akshar Patel who's making all the difference there in that important position. I think that's a very big move by whether it's Gautam Gambhir or it's Rohit Sharma or the think tank. But it's a phenomenal move that they've made, which has made a huge difference for them.
True, and you made the point about India's one of the Achilles heels being that middle phase. What happens with Aksar coming in is at a time when the bowlers are dominating, or at a time when the bowlers have the batting under control, is when you suddenly have a left-right combination, and that messes with the bowlers' plans. It messes with the fielding team's plans. It's
And
worked
he's
out
very good at
beautifully, and
rotating the strike. He's excellent
yeah,
at rotating the strike. Akshar Patel is brilliant at it.
I have been constantly making a case for Rishabh Pant to be playing in this 11, but yeah, Aksar has made that position. So that's part of the thing about this particular Indian side. They don't need to panic whether they're batting first or second, because they seem to have the knack of knowing which bowlers to sit on, and with those bowlers they'll just take 3-4 singles every over, and which bowlers to go after. So if you notice, they don't go after Bracewell, they don't go after Santner. Today, Ravindra was getting spin; they didn't go after him. I mean, they did go after him towards the end, but not in the middle phase. But the minute the quick bowlers came on, they realized that. And look, I mean, New Zealand somehow manages to have something unfortunate happen to them every single time. This time, I think it's Matt Henry. Uh,
Yeah.
that's one very good death bowler, and once you take Matt Henry off, you had to rely on guys like Jamison and O'Rourke, and O'Rourke is certainly no death bowler. So I think
Yeah.
that also
But Prem,
cost
to
New Zealand
counter
a
that,
lot.
I'll say that India played this entire tournament without Bumrah. So I think then it became equal when Henry
Absolutely,
was not playing. Then we had an equal
yeah,
score
yeah,
because we both were missing both the teams were missing their top pace bowler.
yeah, true. Yeah, see, I mean, just to continue that argument, the only difference is that India from the very first game knew it didn't have Bumrah, whereas New Zealand till this morning was hoping that
Yeah.
Henry would be fit. So, but anyway, I'm not saying that that's why India won or New Zealand lost, but I'm saying these are things that went against New Zealand dropping catches, misfielding, and all of that. Again, not for that side. Yeah. When New Zealand plays, that's one thing they can bank on, that their fielders will give nothing away. Today, it wasn't exactly the New Zealand that we've seen in the rest of the tournament.
Yeah. But isn't it weird, Prem, that it's always South Africa who are called the chokers, but New Zealand also coming in playoffs haven't had a phenomenal record. They just slip up at the final stage when they have everything going for them.
That is one way of looking at it. The other way of looking at it is, how the hell does New Zealand make it to so many finals? I mean, they consistently look. You put these teams down on paper. You look at New Zealand on paper versus you look at, say, Australia on paper or South Africa on paper, and you would say those are the better teams. They're well resourced. They have great fast bowlers. They have good spinners. They seem to have pretty much everything. But New Zealand, I mean, they no one individual stands out, but they collectively put in a performance that is greater than the sum of their individual parts. And then there is Glenn Phillips, who does these things that, I mean, it's crazy. That catch that he took off
He's the new John T. Today's
Rohit,
catch was unbelievable. Unbelievable catch.
yeah. And funnily enough, Rohit on the other side at mid-on dropped a catch that was slightly easier than the one that Glenn Phillips took. Almost the same kind of
Yeah.
thing, going overhead, trying to jump. Rohit was nowhere near it. This guy just plucks it out of thin air while he's in full flight. It's
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
yeah,
Prem, but let's get into that. I just want to look at the overall picture of how this Indian team has been doing so well in this tournament and in the one day formats. And, what is it that you think is really taking them? I strongly believe it's those singles and the way they've been working on it. Why don't you take us through it? Because I remember you'd written about this many years ago, and, like I'm repeating myself, but remember John Wright came in and actually asked you to send a printout of the article. And then we did another full series on it where we put it, and they actually used it in their
yeah,
plans. I'm talking 2002.
yeah. See, back then and also now, my thing is, pretty much most of the top international sides don't have a problem hitting fours and sixes. Actually, if you look at the data, I think New Zealand has hit more fours and sixes than India has.
Yes,
What they
that's
have a
true.
problem with, so what they seem to have a problem with is the number of dot balls they play. And if you look at this final, New Zealand was about 25, maybe 30 runs short.
Yeah,
Imagine the difference it would have made if instead of playing 150 plus dot balls, they had played only 120 dot balls. 120 is not, I mean, it's not negligible. That's 20 overs out of 50 that you're not scoring off. But even that would have
correct.
given you 30 extra runs. And I remember when we wrote that piece back in 2002 was India was consistently losing narrowly a lot of ODIs.
Yeah.
And the strike rate, everything looked good. So Ganguly, for instance, would score 100 of 90 deliveries, but then he would have scored 15 fours and 4 sixes. So you're looking at the
Exactly.
number of dot balls he played and realizing that because he wasn't taking singles, the team was losing out on runs. And it was not just Ganguly, right? It was pretty much everybody. And the funniest part of that was, I think, John took that to England, uh, and he instituted a series of
Before the
fines.
NatWest.
Yeah,
Yeah.
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 And he produced this template of fines for X number of dot balls you pay X amount, and some of the Indian players I remember complaining to us later saying that we owe them money because तुम लोगों की वजह से, yeah, we had to pay fines
But
and
look
all
at what
that.
happened after that. I mean, they did so well. They did so well.
Yeah, I mean, for me, look. I mean, fours and sixes are taken for granted in white ball cricket. You will score fours and sixes, but if you keep an eye on the singles, if you try to reduce your dot ball percentage, and if you try to increase the percentage of the runs you're scoring, it's
Yeah.
game on.
Because if
And
you look
funnily
at
enough,
England,
today,
Prem, if you, yeah,
Mhm.
sorry.
No, I was just saying today, our percentage of runs would have been even better if Kohli had batted for a bit, because he's the one
Oh,
who
yeah. Oh,
mostly
yeah.
drives these singles.
Correct.
Even in the
Correct.
last match, remember, I mean, he scored about three boundaries, but all the rest of it was singles, twos, and he makes his batting partner also run. So, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. I was saying it's funny that England has done everything right. If you look at their percentage of fours, and if you look at their percentage, they are really up there. But that's another mystery. These stats don't tell the truth of what does it do? What does it mean that you get your dots and your singles in order, but you're still losing matches?
you're still losing matches because your bowlers are not delivering, right? I
Yeah,
mean, in
yeah,
this particular tournament, other than Adil Rashid, there was no one England bowler who looked consistently threatening. So, I mean, you can take all the singles you want and you can do whatever you want, but You're not going to get anywhere. And if you look at that graphic, 79 fours, yeah, pretty good. Three more than India in one less game. Oh, actually, two less matches.
Right.
Six is not too bad either. But look at the singles; it's just 326. Um,
Yeah.
and dot balls 364. You're playing more dots than singles.
Yeah.
That's
And that
true
when
of
you look
pretty
at the
much all the
percentage of
teams.
this, it explains to you. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's true of most teams, right? I mean, even India has played more dot balls than singles, but India has, to its credit, taken more singles than pretty much every other team. In fact, more than every other team. 29 more than New Zealand. Both played the same number of games. So
But do you
yeah,
think this is a formula that India will continue using now? That spin is king?
I think it'll depend on conditions, right? Again, like I said, I mean, would you have played this bowling lineup in Lahore, for instance, on that batting
No
track?
way. No way.
Yeah, I don't see that happening because there was no grip, there was no turn. I remember seeing a statistic during the match that during the first innings the turn percentage was about 2%. I don't know how they're calculating these things, but whatever. As opposed to 3.4%, I think, in the second innings when New Zealand was bowling. Now, whether that is because the Indian bowlers decided not to rip the ball and instead just focused on bowling stump to stump, or whether the New Zealand bowlers ripped the ball more, I'm not 100% sure. But what I do know is that they wouldn't have gotten even this turn in Karachi or Lahore especially.
Yeah.
So could you have played this team there? No. What you probably might have done is you would have had more or less the same team again, given that Bumrah wasn't available. You would have picked pretty much this team, but you would have mixed it up a lot more. Remember, Washington Sundar never played.
Yeah.
You might have used off
Arshdeep
spinners a
didn't
bit
play.
more. Arshdeep didn't play, and that's on the seam side. In areas where there was swing, there was reverse swing, and all of that, you might have brought in Arshdeep. Uh, Sundar didn't play. You might have used him, particularly against left-hand heavy teams in some of the Pakistan matches. If we had played in Pakistan, you probably would have gone with a better balance of three spinners, two seamers, and Hardik Pandya. So I don't think this is, as far as the playing 11 is concerned, this has now become a knee jerk thing that we will play this. But I think this will more or less be the composition of the white ball side until, let's say, certain players leave or certain other players make compelling cases. You would expect, for instance, Yashasvi Jaiswal to walk into the side at some point or the other.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know how much longer you can keep. And Bumrah will come back sooner than later. So all of that, and we're not playing that much of ODIs, I think, in the immediate future. So
Yeah. It's going to be more of Test cricket and more of T20. T20s. It'll be more
yeah,
of that.
I think
But
one
having
of the
spoken
things
of
that
this,
India did.
yeah, sorry, go
Sorry.
on.
No, I was just making the related point. One of the things that India did well was not just that it went in with four spinners, but that it decided that it would still use Varun Chakravarti and Kuldeep in the same side. Because for all that they look like similar bowlers, they are not. And they bring different skill sets to the table. So that was a big punt and it paid off.
Yeah, in fact, if you look at the spin angle, the turn that they get, I mean, Varun is the least of the entire lot of all those who played the final. Santner and Bracewell have the maximum turn. Kuldeep is very good, but Varun is very negligible. He just kind of, it's like Anil Kumble. Anil Kumble used to always say that it's
Yeah,
not the massive turn that you get, but it's the small turn that you can get that can make all the difference. It's the small angle that you can get that can deceive between an
yeah.
edge and getting a wicket.
Very true. Actually, Varun uses angles a lot more than he uses turn. He bowls pretty much, he uses the entire width of the crease. He keeps changing the angle and he keeps changing the length that he's bowling. It's just an inch fuller, an inch shorter, but it creates different challenges. Look at the number of times he hits you on the pad.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and that's different from what Kuldeep does. Kuldeep uses, you know, the big turning leg break and then the googly, which he's got a very good, well controlled googly. In fact, his first wicket was the uh, so yeah, two different kinds of spinners, and playing them together makes a lot of sense.
Right, right. So, Prem, where would you, going back to the first question that I asked and we wanted to discuss, where would you rate this Indian one day team? I was seeing the similarities between the 85 side that won the World Series in a final against Pakistan way back in 85. And I was going through some stats on that and I saw that everyone contributed in that game. I mean, the highest scorer, the highest run getters were Azhar and Venksatkar. Shrikant did fantastically well at the top, but it was Shastri who walked away with the champion of champions. Well, I think it should probably have been the spinners because Shiva Ramakrishnan was at the peak
Shiva.
of his powers. He was confusing the whole world with his spin. Mohinder, Binny, Kapil Dev were just phenomenal, and I was just trying to see similarities between these two sides.
I think the one thing that that team had, and this is not to take away from KL Rahul, but I think the one thing that that team had, which is even better than this team, is Sakana Vishwanath
Yeah.
at the stumps. He was brilliant, but yeah, I mean, yeah, that again was a very well-rounded team, and it played the kind of ODI cricket that was in vogue at that time, where you were looking to save wickets, keep wickets in hand. You weren't looking to go big in the opening 10 overs or whatever. Different rules, like we said, I think in another episode, I'm very reluctant to compare across eras, but I would say that if you had to pick two Indian teams, yeah, that one of 85, 83, 85, that period, and the one that is playing right now under Rohit, uh, would pretty much match each other.
What about the 2011 World Cup side, Prem, that won the World Cup, Dhoni's side in 2011?
Dhoni's side played very good cricket. It got lucky in key places, and that's again not to take away from the quality of cricket they played. But man for man, I don't think they match this current side. Dhoni fans are going to hate me for this,
Yeah,
but no, I don't think it's the same sort of. Qualitatively, there's a considerable difference. Look, in that particular series, you can think of literally over a dozen times during that tournament when it was touch and go. It could have gone this way, it could have gone that way, up to and including the final wicket. That is a big punt, giving the ball at that particular point to that particular bowler, and that reverse scoop landing up in the hands of the fielder as opposed to outside the fence. So
right.
uh, it was a very good team, but I don't think in terms of sheer quality, man for man, it matches this side.
Yeah, I quite agree with you. Yeah, this one is filled. I mean, imagine the bench strength as you mentioned. I mean, you could have two sides in T20 cricket. Maybe not in the one days, but in T20 you could have two sides. There's so much talent just growing. And Virat Kohli said that when he was standing with Shubman Gill, he said that I feel so comfortable seeing that there's so much talent that's ready to just take over from when he and Rohit walk away, and that's really really promising because the next World Cup is just two years away.
Yeah, absolutely. And you don't know how many of these players are going to make it to that World Cup. I don't know if winning an ODI World Cup makes up for not making it to the WTC final or losing to Australia and stuff, but at least it takes some of the hurt off, I think. That defeat to
That's
Australia is
true.
now
Yeah.
sandwiched by two victories, T20 and this thing. So, as far as white ball cricket is concerned, we seem to be well set, not just now, but also for the immediate future. The point that you were making about Kohli's statement. Test cricket, still some work to be done, but hopefully we'll get there.
Yeah, lots of
And
work
this
to be
year we're
done.
playing a lot of test
Yeah,
matches,
but
so yeah,
going to England, that's going to be a big series. That's going to be a
yeah,
big series. But I wanted to also discuss Rohit Sharma's captaincy legacy. I mean, this man has been criticized so much by everyone, but just look at it now. I think he stands as one of the most successful captains ever. He's got a T20 World Cup. He's got a Champions Trophy World Cup. He's taken us to the World Cup final and taken us to so many. I think one World Test Championship final. What is the legacy of Rohit's captaincy, according to you?
I think his legacy would actually be not so much the tournaments that he's won or the other accolades that he's won for the side. I think it is this that we keep talking about captains who have had to handle teams during transition periods. So if you think of the transition from the Azhar era to the era of the Fab Four or whatever, there was that period of transition. Then again, when the Fab Four started fading out, Fab Five actually, because you had Sehwag to it, when they
Sehwag.
started fading out again, you had a period of transition where things looked a bit dodgy before the team settled in again. I think what is not noticed about Rohit is that there has been in all three formats, there has been a transition, but it has never been noticed because somehow some players have gone, some players have come in, but the standard that the team has maintained has always been the same. And a large part of that credit, I think, goes to Rohit. Look, his captaincy credentials have never been in doubt. He's led Mumbai Indians beautifully, for instance. Uh, there's that teaser that they're running on OTT where you have Surya Kumar Yadav saying, I want to have tattoos for
That
every uh, yeah, and Rohit finally saying, I don't have tattoos simply because jagah hi nahi hai. I've already got six. So yeah, I think he's been a phenomenal captain. He's been a very understated captain in the sense that there's no theatrics, there is no over the top stuff, but he's taken over a team that was in transition and he's never made you feel that this was a team in transition. Look at England, for instance. George Butler having to give up the captaincy. I don't think England's failure was just that of captaincy, it was a collective failure. But
yeah,
the single biggest failure is that this transition where they have some new players coming in and some old players fading out, some of their reliable players fading out. England hasn't managed that transition well. Australia just showed you what can happen if two, three key players are not part of the side. Uh, I look at the West Indies team in transition. West Indies seems to have been in transition for the last 20 years, but whatever. I mean, team in transition, uh, and not even making it to the Champions Trophy. Pretty much
yeah,
every country that you look at when or even Sri Lanka after the end of the Sangakkara Jayawardene era,
Jayawardene era, yeah.
has has been struggling, but India's
I think the other
has
big
moved
thing,
on.
Prem, has been I think another of the big thing
Mhm.
is that the way Rohit Sharma handled Virat Kohli. I mean, Virat Kohli was the captain for the longest time. He had the whole team, easily one of the greatest batsmen of the era. And, the way he managed that man management was amazing because there was so much of tension. Uh, Rohit Sharma's time had already come to take over, but Virat Kohli was still in the way. I think he was a season or two late that Rohit Sharma finally got the captaincy for him to still manage Virat and take the best out of Virat wherever he could, at least in the white ball format. I think that really goes a long way to say that here's a captain who has a heart and a captain who doesn't have malice. He was struggling with his own form, he was struggling with his own fitness, but at no point of time did he let that intimidate him because, we've seen Azhar play under four captains in the same side. We've seen Saurav having to play under Rahul, and we know all the pressure and the dynamics
Yeah,
that went through at that time. But Rohit seems unfazed by all of it. I mean, nothing moves him. The fact that Virat is there, and Virat runs up to him at times, makes suggestions. He takes it at times. At other times, he'll just nod and smile, and you'll see Virat walking back, just with a wry smile, saying that he's not taking his advice. But Rohit just is his own man as a captain, and that's really
he
something to really
yeah, and you
celebrate.
used true. You used the word man management. I remember there was this YouTube channel that Ashwin runs, and in one of them, he talks about how when Ashwin's father, I think it was, suddenly fell sick in the middle of a test match,
Mother,
actually.
yeah, his mother, and he had to leave. Yeah,
Yeah, his mom. Yeah, and how Rohit ensured that Ashwin went. Uh, di- and this in the middle of a test match. I mean, which captain is going to do that? uh, didn't
yeah,
just ensure that. Ashwin went, he got him a flight, made sure he took it. He sent somebody with him to make sure that things were under control, all of that. And the other thing is, you talked about him managing Virat and the possible tensions that could have happened if it had been somebody else. But also think of this. Last year, there was that controversy about Hardik Pandya coming into Mumbai Indians, taking over the captaincy
Oh,
from Rohit. Hardik is now playing under Rohit, and there's absolutely no sign of any tension between the two of them. They're quite
it's
happy.
unbelievable, really.
Starting,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, starting in 2 weeks, Hardik will be leading Rohit. But,
Yeah.
so yeah, you're right. Rohit doesn't seem to allow all of these things to affect him. He's just nice and calm and patient, and he treats everything lightly. He's got a smile, he's got a joke. Even when he's criticizing a player, he'll say it with some, he'll make you laugh.
He's got a very
This,
Mumbaiya
yeah.
attitude when it comes to that. A very Shivaji Park attitude that, we'll take
Oh,
care
yeah.
of it. There's always the next match. Yeah.
Yeah. I remember there was this event where I was comparing, and Rohit was also part of it. And as we were leaving, we were looking at some data, and we suddenly realized that Rohit was scoring better when he was captain, as opposed to when Virat was captain. So I pointed that out to Rohit, and this was on the sidelines. And Rohit just laughed and said, "Virat ko mat bolna." So he was, he was
That's quite
yeah,
something. But what a combination. What a combination they are.
yeah, true. And that seems to be a nice note to wrap this up, right? The
Yeah, I
Virat
think so. We
Rohit.
should go and celebrate the win now. Virat Rohit, yeah. The
Yeah,
Rocco factor that has got India so much pride.
yeah.
See you next time
So
then, Prem.
thank you. Yeah.
Let's,
Yeah,
sorry, we're speaking over each other. We are too excited with this win.
that's fine. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Who wouldn't be? So, yeah, on that note, let's wrap up. And that's it for the Champions Trophy. From next week onwards, we'll come up with new and interesting things to do.
Hit a long way. Out on the run is Larry. Oh!